If you were a soldier in 1943, hunkered down in a rain-soaked foxhole, or maybe a civilian watching your pantry shrink under the weight of strict rationing, your greatest enemy wasn't always the opposing army. It was rot. We often talk about the industrial might of World War II, but honestly, the real unsung hero was the hard-nosed chemistry of preservation. While modern history buffs often fixate on the ubiquitous tin of corned beef, that salty slab was only the tip of the iceberg in a global struggle to keep calories edible for years without refrigeration. Today, we're going deep into the forgotten logistics of survival, looking at the ingenious and, at times, desperate food technologies that kept millions from starving when the world was, quite literally, on fire. Before we peel back the lid on these historical rations, make sure you subscribe to Atten Recounts so you never miss our deep dives into the grit and reality of the past. We're moving past the common myths to look at the high-calorie, shelf-stable engineering that really defined an era. The heavy lifting of hardtack and the evolution of the service biscuit provided the foundation for long-term survival. To understand how armies stayed mobile, you have to look at the humble biscuit, which was far removed from the soft, buttery versions found on modern breakfast tables. The British and Commonwealth forces relied heavily on service biscuits, which were essentially a refined version of age-old hardtack. These were baked to a moisture content so low that bacteria simply had no medium in which to grow. These biscuits were notorious for their tooth-shattering density, but honestly they were a masterpiece of caloric preservation designed to withstand extreme humidity in the Pacific and bone-dry heat in North Africa without losing their nutritional integrity. For a modern survivalist, the takeaway here is the importance of dry-bake technology. You can replicate this today by creating simple flour and salt-based hardtack and subjecting it to a dehydration process that lasts several hours at low heat. The goal is a product that rings like wood when tapped. When stored in an airtight container with oxygen absorbers, this simple World War II staple remains edible for decades, providing a reliable source of carbohydrates that requires zero energy to maintain. Dried eggs and the mastery of spray drying transformed a fragile protein into a strategic asset. One of the greatest logistical hurdles of the war was transporting protein across the Atlantic without it spoiling in the hulls of cargo ships. The solution was the widespread adoption of spray-drying technology to create powdered eggs. This wasn't just a convenience, it was a revolution in logistics. By removing the water content, the volume of the food was reduced by nearly 75%, and the risk of salmonella, or rot, was virtually eliminated during transport. While soldiers often complained about the rubbery texture of rehydrated eggs, the sheer protein density kept the Allied forces functioning. For the serious history enthusiast looking to apply this today, the lesson lies in the efficiency of modern protein powders and freeze-dried whole foods. If you are building a long-term pantry, focusing on high-quality powdered proteins allows you to store a year's worth of nutrition in a fraction of the space required for canned goods. To use these effectively, you should mix the powder with slightly warm water and let it sit for 5 minutes to fully hydrate the proteins before cooking, a step many wartime cooks skipped, leading to the poor reputation of the meal. Potted meats and, well, the science of fat sealing kept nutrition stable in the most extreme conditions. Beyond the standard tinned corned beef, the war saw a massive reliance on potted meats and meat pastes. This technique used the ancient principle of confit, where meat is cooked and then sealed under a thick layer of rendered fat. The fat acts as a natural anaerobic barrier, preventing oxygen from reaching the meat and, allowing spoilage-causing microbes to flourish. In the European theatre, small tins of meat paste were a luxury that provided essential fats and minerals. For a practical application of this knowledge, one can study the art of rendering tallow or lard to preserve cooked meats without canning. By placing cooked, salted meat into a sterilized jar and pouring hot, rendered fat over it until the meat is completely submerged, you create a seal that can last for months in a cool cellar environment. This is a vital skill for anyone interested in traditional food preservation that doesn't rely on modern electricity, bridging the gap between historical necessity and modern self-sufficiency. Dehydrated vegetables and the birth of the compressed ration block ensured vitamins were never left behind. We rarely think of instant food as a World War II invention, but the necessity of providing vitamins to troops in the field led to the creation of highly compressed dehydrated vegetable blocks. These were often a mix of carrots, cabbage and potatoes, stripped of all moisture and pressed under several tons of pressure into small bricks. This process inhibited enzymatic browning and spoilage, allowing a single block the size of a cigarette pack to be boiled to provide a full serving of vegetables for 4 men. If you want to integrate this into your own preparedness strategy, investing in a high-quality dehydrator is the first step. By blanching vegetables to stop enzyme activity and then drying them until they are brittle, you can create your own soup mixes that occupy very little space. To apply this practically, store your dehydrated vegetables in vacuum-sealed mylar bags. This mimics the airtight tinning of the 1940s and ensures that your vitamin sources remain potent for years rather than weeks. Chocolate as a high-calorie fuel source was engineered to resist melting and spoilage in tropical climates. The D-Ration bar is perhaps the most famous example of food engineered specifically for the horrors of war. It wasn't designed to taste good. In fact, the army requested it taste just a little better than a boiled potato, so soldiers wouldn't eat it as a snack before they needed it. It was a high-energy survival tool made of chocolate, sugar, oat flour and cacao butter, designed to withstand temperatures of up to 120 degrees Fahrenheit without melting into a useless mess. This was achieved by altering the fat structure and increasing the solids content. For the modern history buff, this highlights the importance of temperature-stable fats in a survival kit. When selecting items for a go bag or long-term storage, look for high-calorie bars that use stabilizers or natural waxes to prevent the separation of oils. You can even experiment with making your own Logan bread or dense survival bars by mixing heavy grains with honey and cocoa and baking them until they are almost rock-hard, which ensures they won't go rancid, even if left in a hot vehicle or an outdoor cache. The ingenuity of World War II food preservation reminds us that survival is often a brute force calculation of managing moisture and oxygen. These methods were perfected under the greatest pressure imaginable, and they remain just as valid today for anyone serious about history or preparedness. By understanding the science behind the service biscuit or the D-Ration, we gain a deeper appreciation for the resilience of those who came before us. If you found this breakdown of wartime logistics valuable, share this video with a fellow history enthusiast. And don't forget to subscribe to Atten Recounts for more in-depth explorations into the reality of the past.